So I was born in Elmhurst, Queens. My parents were political exile from Haiti. And I spent part of my first year in Haiti. Actually, I had gone to visit my grandmother when my mom's brother basically disappeared. So we had to go into hiding. And that was kind of set up the tone a little bit for the rest of my childhood, which was spent pretty much going back and forth. So I spent the school year in Haiti, and then I would come and visit my parents who couldn't travel in the summer. Fast forward college, I went to Queens College for a Bachelor in Fine Arts, and then I went to the School of Visual Arts for a master's degree. I think that early on, what really stood out for me was trying to articulate a language in the work. I was interested in imagery right away. I never had to look for subject matter. In college, I was really taken by Jasper John's painting, and I think it's because he used images. Images seems to be signifiers or symbolic more than explicit in his work, even when literally you cannot tell what the image stands for. So that was my introduction to image making somehow. John was like, wow, I could include, because my professors were abstract expressionists before that. So John was my introduction to subject matter and to content in an interesting way. Pretty much I was interested in how to develop a language that encompass both my experience living between places and that could reflect a diasporic identity, so to speak. I think that probably the biggest challenge that any artist face is continuity and to sustain a practice. And I've been pretty lucky that I've sustained my practice pretty continuously for quite some years right now. I had an early challenge with materials because I was trained as an oil painter, and I became allergic to solvent basically and to oil pigments basically, which is how I started diving in mixed media pieces. So my first challenge was finding a language to articulate my work, which is how I started integrating collage elements and vinyl and plastic and India ink, as well as acrylic into the work. Not counting beads and sequins, of course. I think that for a long time, I didn't maybe realize that I was having a diasporic experience growing up. But it certainly was pointing out to me as soon as I started college, because people certainly were asking me where I'm from. And saying that you're from Queens just didn't satisfy the answer. So for me, I see quite a continuum and a fluidity between my experiences. And I was interested in creating pieces that open a space for that fluidity of references. So that's one part of it. The other part also is that I am a storyteller in my work. And I really did not want to give up those memories, those stories, that iconography that I found very interesting. When I came of age, so to speak, as an artist after grad school, there was not a discourse to really express a Caribbean or Latin American identity in art. So that language had to be created, so to speak. So I think that myself, as well as my peers, we spent the first part of our career pretty much crafting a language to express that. If you were a Black woman, then, Black was kind of a blanket statement. And while that is part of my experience and part of what I part of my references, are so what you could call African-American iconography, whether they're black eyed peas or collard greens. So that's certainly part of the iconography that I'm interested in. But it is also a more complex identity, which is, different than being African-American. So part of that early part of my career was spent very much crafting more complex language, as well as several peers, working in the same area. One of my colleague, a longtime colleague who's written extensively about my work is Jerry Philogene. And I remember having a discussion with Jerry in the mid-90s and saying that, the minute someone wants to talk about my work, they're not talking about art anymore. We're going in sociology, ethnological references, we're going to Maya Deren, and it's not a discourse about art. And I remember Jerry telling me she was at NYU getting her PhD. She's like, hang on. I'm coming with the discourse. I'm almost done. A couple more years, I'll be done. But literally, now, I'm thrilled by the departments that we have, by how many curators, and a lot of women actually, who have developed that knowledge in that field. So it's great to have seen that development happen. Well, I'm a storyteller, so I always have a story to tell. That comes so naturally, from just very simple memories, to songs, to a tale that was accidentally told, to an image I saw somewhere in Carnival. Part of the going back and forth is that I think that when I would go to Haiti, I saw things partly with a foreign eyes, so that things would stick out, and I would be like, wow, this is so cool. We don't have this in New York, And so it's as if I have stored a lot of images, and so I have that bank of images and of stories and narratives that come out in the work. Right now, I just finished wrapping up a very long series of pieces, the Pantheon, which is a series that I started while I was an artist in residence at the Studio Museum in Harlem quite a while back. It's my third version and the most complete version, which I just finished printing at Coronado Print Studio. It's a 21-piece Pantheon with 21 print portfolios presented in a cigar box. So I'm wrapping that up. It's a very long-term project that I'm thrilled to finish. It's one of those. It's great working on it, but it's even greater to wrap it up. And then I started painting. So thrilled to be painting again. Right now, I'm very interested in what I'm working on. I'm immersed in the language of paint and mixed media pieces, but I'm working on canvas and I'm re-engaging with the language of paint. After my allergies to paint, to oil paint, acrylic somehow didn't do the trick for me, or the acrylics we had at the time. And I love working with the fluid acrylics right now, but I'm coming to it also with all the experience I've acquired with the mixed media pieces, which is making it very exciting. So I just embarked on a very large series of pieces on linen. And right now, that conversation with myself is my dream. And those pieces. The series is called Old World, New World. So I traveled to Greece last summer, and I snap an incredible amount of pictures. I shouldn't say as usual, because I'm not usually taken by everything. But I was really taken by some of the old ruins and the walls, the stone walls. So I came back with a huge amount of images of stone walls, and some of the imagery and the mythology from the Pantheon series are blended with there as the New World and Old World. Well, the first thing you have to do is create a studio practice. And that's the most important thing, to create regular hours and a consistent studio practice that is totally anchored in your life and your daily life, not a once in a while thing, but an absolute part of your life. And I think that's the most important thing. Once you have a studio practice and you have developed strong studio habits, you could take it anywhere. It's a challenge, and you try to do it fluidly. I tend to do paperwork early in the morning, because once I get into this workspace in the studio, I do not want to go back and forth. I also have some help at this point in the studio, which makes it, allows my time to stretch a bit more so I could focus more on the artwork. I think the big thing for aspiring artists is to really work, and work smartly, but you do have to work. I think that I could say that on a good day, if you could get 6 hours of pure creation at a high level, that's a solid day. And then several other hours could be used for prep, for other things, for drawing and for doing other things. But if I could just be at the highest level for 6 hours continuously, I'm thrilled.